Alrighty, so now we're back with more videos, and what I want to do today is I want to make the feet, right? Our next video will be the hands, and then we'll get into next week and kind of do the face and put a little bit of gear and armor on the character. So yeah, that's what we want to do. So in this case, of course, we want to make sure to turn our symmetry on, right? So we're going to go to symmetry here. And remember, it's going to be better to use topology this time around, right? Instead of the world stuff right here, topology is actually going to work better because we're doing a lot of little shape tweaks on this character. You're just going to find that ultimately this is going to work more reliably because instead of using the actual exact shapes being the same on both sides of the axis, topology uses the edge loops. And so as you tweak a lot, right, and do lots of little movements, it becomes really easy for world to kind of not work, right? Where one side will kind of get lazy or drift a little bit, and that breaks world for that area. Topology doesn't have that problem because it uses the edge loops. So as long as the edge loops are the same, even if the shape gets a little bit off, you're good. So particularly when you start to work with more complicated models, topology is actually a better choice. The nice thing is overall, Maya's symmetry system is pretty good, right? World has its own strengths, topology has its own strengths. So overall, you have kind of good options for whatever you kind of need. It's a pretty good symmetry system. So we got a topology. It's the very bottom one. And it always asks you to pick an edge, right? So you want to pick an edge on the center edge loop, right? So I click on that edge, and then you'll see if I go to, like, say, face mode, right? Hold down right mouse button. Come on, Maya. There we go. Hold down right mouse button, face. You see how it's working perfectly fine? So remember, when you turn on topology symmetry, you do have to pick an edge, right? And it should be an edge on the center edge loop for how you want it to be symmetrical. So in this case, we kind of picked an edge down that center edge loop. And then it works. And even if your shape gets off, and you can go back to watch previous videos, because we talked about previous videos, you have that. Now, one of the things we can also do is do a little more shaping on the leg before we do the foot. So I'm going to hold down right mouse button, go to edge mode, right? And I could double click, right? Double left click on an edge loop. Then we can hit R for scale, right? In this case, my tweak is actually still on for scale, right? So I'm going to go back to pick marquee so you can see your normal scale. So remember, if you hit your manipulator and you're not seeing the manipulator come up, that's usually because your tweak marquee is still on, right? Instead of the pick marquee. So just keep that in mind. And of course, I can grab that center one and scale it in a little bit, right? There we go. And you see how it kind of makes that a little thinner there. I can go in here and I can double click on this edge loop to scale this one in a little bit. Maybe even just on the red. Double click that edge loop, maybe scale it out just on the red there. So remember, you can actually scale on the different axes and start to move them around to get kind of a little bit better shape for kind of these areas. Remember, I can even go to grab these two edges, right? Remember, Q is your regular selection tool, right? Remember, they're always right here as well. And of course, we can hit W for move, and we can grab that center one, move it out a little bit. And you can see I can just kind of come in here and I can just grab some of these edges if I wanted to. Remember, middle mouse button will use your last selected access, right? In this case, free move. So if I hold down middle mouse button, it'll kind of just do free move without me having to actually grab on the center of the manipulator, right? Kind of cool to know about that stuff. Kind of maybe grab these guys here a little bit, bring the butt out a little bit more there. So you see how we can kind of refine that shape a little bit more as we go along. So remember, you're going to want to kind of keep moving your shapes around to get the form a little better. So you can kind of bring that in to kind of match the kind of leg a little better there. Even these ones could come down a little bit to kind of get that butt shape a little bit better there. Maybe grab this edge, bring it up. Remember, you can use the tweak tool if you want to. That's often a great, fast way to do some shape tweaking. But remember, you can always just use your regular manipulator. Remember, though, that center handle, right, that little square, it's usually a light blue square unless it's selected and then it becomes yellow, is your free move or your view move, right? It moves based on the camera, so it's kind of relative to the camera itself. And that's actually really useful when you're doing stuff that's got a lot of organic curvature. Obviously, when we do it at our desks and our end tables, not cool there. Here, really cool. Tweak by default uses that, right? Tweak's usually using the view move, particularly if it's the last thing that's selected. So remember, you can just kind of come in here and do a little bit of kind of quick, nice little kind of view moves a little bit if you want to from different angles to kind of just get that shape a little bit better. So remember, you're going to keep working on shape as you go, right? And these ones I think I'll bring in just a little bit more. There we go. Because there's going to be some shorts on there eventually, so I don't need the butt that pronounced. But so we're trying to build a little bit of that curvature into this body, right? These are the things that you're going to need to do. And you see how you can use move, rotate, scale, right? I can use rotate, E for rotate. And I can just do a view rotate, right? So double clicking on an edge loop, you can always use your view rotate. There is actually a view rotate. It's the light blue one on the outside, right? That's kind of like your view move, right? It kind of makes it rotate based on the view. And these are really, really cool when you're dealing with characters, spaceships, cars. Really great stuff to actually start to work with, right? The view moves for this stuff. We saw it a bit on the clock radio, right? So keep in mind that view move when you're doing this stuff is actually really, really cool, right? Do you have to use it? No, you don't have to use it, right? But it's there. It can be super useful. And you see how I kind of just did a little bit of good shaping there, kind of made the knee a little thinner, the calf a little thicker, the ankle a little thinner. These are the kind of things that are going to help you with the shape, right? And kind of see how the curvature. And I was using edge loops and edges. You'll actually probably find you're going to be working more with edges and edge loops on this one. So let's make the foot now, right? Now, in this case, we're going to go back to face mode, right? I'm going to hold down the right mouse button, and I'm going to go to face selection, right? And I'm going to select these two faces, right? And you see they're kind of not on the bottom, right? There's kind of these 4 polygons on the bottom. That was after we did that first smooth, right? Remember, go back to watch those other videos, right? Before we start to make the feet, hands, face, we do a smooth, right? So follow the videos step by step, guys, right? Don't go ahead and go, oh, I can start making the feet now even though I haven't smoothed. No, smooth, do that first smooth that's at the end of that second video before you start making your hands and feet, because that's really going to kind of give you your the rest of your stuff to be able to do, right? And remember, you saw in that video I was doing some shaping here by moving edges out and back in and stuff like that to kind of get that shape for the pectorals. You can see how that shoulder loop worked quite well to give us good form for that. So in this case, though, we want to select those two faces. Remember, I have X-ray shade on also, right? X-ray shade, it's right there. It's kind of those two white squares overlapping. And remember, Channel Box Layer Editor, I've got a layer that I created, and I've got it set to reference right now. Remember, that's that first video, right? The first video for the troll goes over how to do these things. So remember, I have gone over everything for you in here. I'm just kind of trying to reinforce that stuff. So of course we can extrude. Remember, Control E is the quick key for it, so I'm just going to hit Control E for extrude. There we go. And hit W for move, and we can just kind of view move it out. Now in this case, you'll notice how I'm going to kind of view move it out to just about there. And then maybe do a little bit of view rotate, right? E for rotate. But I'm kind of just using those view controls. You'll start to see that these are actually really cool when you're doing things like characters, creatures, even certain heart service stuff, right? Like our clock or a car can actually make very good use of these. So remember, you have your more precise ones, but then you have your kind of view-based ones, and those can actually be really cool when you're doing much more kind of freeform, highly curvy, complicated organic stuff. Even if it's kind of a hard, like a car, like a hard surface, it still has kind of organic forms to it. So that gives us that kind of starting point for the foot. Of course, if I want, I can go back to edge mode, right? Hold down right mouse button, edge mode. W for move that one up a little bit, maybe grab that edge, move that one out a little bit. Remember, you can start to use Tweak Tool if you wanted to in this instance. I'm going to stick a little more with the regular view move right now, just so you guys see that this is very capable of doing it, right? If you don't want to use Tweak, if you don't want to use soft selection, you don't have to. Remember, that was at the end of video 2. Like the last 6 minutes of it or so, and those are purely optional, right? So that gives us kind of the start of the foot, but not our toes, right? We don't want to go out past the toes. So what I need to do is I need to get myself a third toe, because you'll notice I've got 2 toes here, but we want to build this foot to support all 5 toes if we wanted to, right? So I'm actually teaching you how to do build a structure to support all 5 toes, even though we're only building 2. It's our stylized troll, but I still like to kind of teach you guys how to build a human if you really needed to also, right? So in this case, I need an edge loop, an extra edge loop up the center here. And there's 2 ways we could do it. We could add a multi-cut through here if we wanted to, but we could also just double click on that center edge loop, right? And it goes all the way up through here. And instead of adding a multi-cut, if we wanted to, we could simply just put in kind of a bevel, right? So we go to bevel right here, and that just kind of takes that edge loop and it splits it into 2 edge loops, right? And of course, we can control the fraction size. In this case, it looks like it did it perfect at 0.5. But remember, you can turn that up and down, but that'll be the only one you'd adjust with the poly bevel, is that fraction for the size. Technically, though, this really just added a second edge loop, right? So there's really just a second edge loop in there. Now, once I usually put this loop in, we can kind of take this extra edge loop out if we wanted to keep it a little simpler for the face. I think in this case, we'll kind of just keep it there. It gives us a little more to work with the face later on. A little more for shaping purposes, right? But technically, you could take this edge loop out right here and not really hurt yourself, right? But I think we'll leave it. It'll work for us. So we now have this extra edge loop here. You'll see what's great about this is we have a little more to shape the butt if we wanted to. We've got a little more that can allow us to shape the trapezius better. There's a little more to shape the pecs in here better, right? So we can kind of grab some of these edges and hit W for move those in a little bit, right? So you see how we can actually get a little bit more refined shape there also now because of those extra edges. And you'll see that we actually have some extra stuff for the face later on, which is always useful. So kind of adding that extra edge loop kind of up through the leg, either way, either with a multi-cut, just one multi-cut, or selecting this in an edge loop bevel, which is the way I did it, right? Just kind of, because it kept them more even, splitting apart instead of putting up one side or the other. Both ways would work, though, and still give you the same exact edge loop structure. I think this just works a little better for shape by beveling it. So in this case, we can use this whole edge loop throughout the whole entire body. So that's why I kind of just add the whole loop up there, because it's actually useful for everything in here, right? We'll be able to use it up here and in the face. So sometimes you add a whole edge loop all the way through because it's useful everywhere. So now you'll see that it actually gives us 3 polygons on the end here, right? So if you look, we've got 1, 2, 3 polygons. That's going to give us the ability, and remember, if you hit F, right, I selected those faces there. If you hit F, that frames that selection, right? So that now you're kind of a little more focused on the foot. But you'll notice there's actually 3 polygons kind of on the end of that extrusion now instead of 2. But we still need to get 5, right? We need 2 more. So what I do to get 2 more is, in this case, I'll just hold down Tab. Remember, Tab is your quick key for drag select. Although remember, it is a modeling tool right there, drag. But if you hold down Tab, you just left mouse move, right? And it allows you to do that quick drag selecting. Now you'll notice that I selected the polygons on the side, the polygons on the back, and the polygons on the other side. So if you're kind of doing this exactly like I'm doing it, there should be about 9 polygons selected. We don't select the front 3 though, right? So we select the side, the back, the other side, and you can kind of see how the back ones are above these 3 stars right here. Sometimes Maya's, come on Maya, there we go. Sometimes it's freezing on me there a little bit. And what we want to do to create toes 4 and 5 is, believe it or not, we're just going to extrude, right? So we hit extrude. And in this case, remember, we're actually going to, this case, I actually want to extrude along normal direction, right? Usually we don't like to, but we found like with our spokes for our chair that was great. We found with like when we're doing thickening of stuff that's great. So sometimes extrude along normal direction is awesome. A lot of the time it's not, but this is actually one of the instances where it is. So I can just grab that blue arrow. And remember, sometimes you might see the full manipulator that's got like all 3 arrows, the kind of rotate features. That still has that same functionality there. This is kind of the simplified version of it, right? So in this case, the blue arrow still does the exact same thing it normally would. So in whichever case, when you extrude, just find that blue arrow, and that will allow you to kind of extrude along normal direction. And what's cool now is when we look at this, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We now have polygons for all 5 toes, right? Really cool. The other benefit we get here, when Maya is freezing up a little today, is we also get some extra edge loops on the back of the heel. That's why we kind of selected all the way around, right? Because the sides, by extruding those, gives us toes 4 and 5, or at least the polygons that can support toes 4 and 5. But by doing it all the way around, including the back ones, we keep it star minimum, right? If we just did the side ones here, you'd see that there would be extra stars here that we don't need. But it also gives us an edge loop that goes all the way through the heel. So this is actually a really, really awesome kind of way to get the foot, right? I can bring this down, and you see how there's enough geometry to really start getting a cool heel going on, right? Let's kind of do a drag select for those, bring them down a little bit. And you can keep refining shape, right? So I can go back in here to edge mode. And in this case, remember, tilde is your quick key for the tweak tool, right? So if you hold down tilde, which is right above tab, right? It's the key right above tab. Tweak tool will be on. And what you can do is that'll just temporarily be on. So you can just kind of tweak some edges up, right? And so that can kind of be a quick, fast way to kind of do a little bit of shape tinkering, just to kind of make some adjustments here. So remember, your tweak tool can be a great, fast way to kind of make some of these nice little adjustments on shape if you want to. There we go. Probably bring these up a little bit for the heel. There we go, just so they're not quite so bunched up on top of each other. And we can easily start to do some cool refining of shape just from these different angles, kind of give a little more of the arch of the foot in here. All right. So remember, tilde, if you hold it down, your tweak marquee will be on, and then when you let it go, it goes back to default pick marquee. So remember, you have that shaping functionality. Remember, this is optional. You do not have to actually use that tool if you don't want to, right? You can just do regular view move stuff. So see how I can kind of move these over to kind of get more of the positioning for the actual toes? Come on, Maya, don't... There we go. So see how I can just kind of grab some of these edges here, and I can just kind of move them around, because this is going to be this toe, and this one's going to be, this polygon is going to be this toe, and so you see how I'm kind of just trying to kind of get that overall shape pretty well pulled out for us, right? But you see we kind of keep adjusting the forms just to kind of match a little closer to the actual reference model. You see how I'm often work with edges, and I can kind of bring them down and in. And you see we're kind of moving them around to get the overall kind of shape we want, right? So that actually gives us kind of our kind of main structure here. And what we could do now is we go to face selection mode again, and we just grab that single face, right? And we can extrude. And then we'll hit W for move it out. Kind of get it lined up here, kind of into position. There we go. If you're getting any slanting, right? Remember, that's something you have to correct when you're extruding these things out, right? Sometimes the shape slants a little bit. So in this case, I'll kind of show a quick example here, right? That's not what you want. Now, sometimes when you extrude out, you'll see this and you'll think, oh, I extruded wrong. Guys, if you did it to the right polygon, you didn't extrude wrong, your shape just isn't good, right? So what you do is you just move it over until you get the shape better, right? So shaping really is just one of those things where the extrusion tool will give you nice, good structure, but it's not necessarily going to guarantee you the actual forms you want, right? So you have to keep that in mind, is that you, as you kind of move stuff around and things like that, you're going to have to kind of keep tinkering with and adjusting shape. All right, so I'm going to go back to face selection mode. And I'm going to grab the face on this side, right? Because we're only using 2 of the 5, right? But we have that 5-toe structure, which is great. So we'll do another extrusion. W for move to bring it out. And of course, one of the great things you can see about this is that this is just the extrusion tool, which we've been using tons in class, right? So we're not actually doing tons of new stuff, right? So that's a little skewed, so we can kind of bring that down and kind of straighten it out a little bit, right? And you could do this in edge mode, of course, as well. But I usually like to do an extrusion that kind of gets the overall length for us. And you can see now we've got the main toe structures. Now we do need a little bit more in here to give shape. So we can go to multi-cut. Remember the the quick key for that is Control-Shift-X. Oops, which in this case is actually my record thing. So I'll just use the button. It's a quick key for the videos I'm recording and stuff in. So if we hold down Control, right, we can put an edge loop there, and then an edge loop there. Because your toes, much like your fingers, actually have kind of 2 knuckles, right? So I put these 2 edge loops in for the knuckles. We're not going to do tons of knuckle shaping yet, but this gives us a good starting point, right? And I'll do the same thing over here as well. Man, my Maya's going slow today. So I'll just hold down Control and put 2 here as well. And the nice thing is we're doing 2 toes, but you would apply this to these other toes. So if you wanted, for your model, of course, you're only going to do 2 toes. But in the future, if you want to do 3 toes, you could extrude a 3rd one. If you want to do all 5, like a human, you could extrude all 5. But that's what you would do. So here we're keeping it a little simpler so that you guys don't have to do quite as much while still learning all the fundamentals, right? You know how to build the structure for 5 toes if you need it. And you get to at least build 2 of the toes. So I'm going to go back to edge mode, right? Hold down right mouse button, edge. And I can grab this edge and I can move it down, right? And I can move this edge up. And then we can grab this edge, so we're kind of working on this big toe, and move this up, because you'll notice your toes kind of have a bit of this kind of arch to them, right? And so you see we're just kind of going in here and slowly from the different views, just kind of tinkering a little bit. This edge can come out a little bit more. That one can kind of probably come back over a little bit more. So you just kind of move your edges as you work, just kind of line them up with the shapes a little better. But you'll often find you're actually going to be working with edges on this stuff, because like I said, they're kind of like that sweet spot, right? Polygons are often a little too big. Vertices are kind of a little too small. Edges are kind of just right for a lot of this kind of shaping. And we'll do the same thing on this toe, right? Grab that kind of front edge there, bring it down. Grab this kind of version of it down here on the back, bring it up, and you can kind of see how we're starting to get that kind of arch for the toes. Grab that front one because that'll allow you to round it off a little bit. And then if there's little adjustments you need to make here, just to kind of match it a little closer, you can, but works out pretty well. And now you have a fully functioning well-edged loop foot, right? Star minimum, right? We only have a couple of 5 stars and 3 stars where we absolutely need them. And we have extra edge loops for the heel. So this is actually a really, really awesome, great way to build a foot while keeping everything quads and only having absolutely the stars that you need. All right, so that's the foot. And that'll be a great place to stop for this video.